Hi, whoever is listening. My name's Joann, and I'm a practitioner at Natural Healing Center. And hi, Anjana. Thanks for joining. Tonight, on tonight's Facebook Live, we are going to be talking about how to improve your sleep naturally. So I'm going to be talking about why sleep is important, what might be some barriers to sleep. So, if you're experiencing trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, that's what we would consider a symptom. And when you have symptoms, it is an indication, hi Matt, that there is some kind of imbalance or dysfunction going on in the body, essentially a root cause. Hi Sandra, that is manifesting or allowing that symptom to manifest. So a lot of times that can be inadequate sleep. We can also take a look at lifestyle habits and lifestyle practices that should support you in getting a good night's rest. So I'll give you some tips. Hi Lorna. On some natural remedies and practices you can try to support you in getting sleep throughout the night. So sleep is really, really important to our health and healing. I would put it, at the same priority as eating a balanced, whole food rich diet and getting physical activity. I would also add to that list managing stress. So those are 4 really big pillars, and so sleep is really important, and I want to give you some reasons as to why that is. Hi Kim, thanks for joining. So happy to have you here. Okay, so if you may or may not be aware, but sleep actually helps you to maintain a healthy weight. It can also help you to lose weight too, and that's because if you are deprived of sleep, you may experience an increased appetite and you're wanting to consume more calories because your body's looking for essentially an energy boost because you're not getting that energy from sleeping. And so unfortunately the foods that you'll try to reach for are those like higher calorie, carby foods, again, to give you that energy boost. And then another thing too is if you're not sleeping, then you're going to feel more tired, more fatigued during the day, and it's going to be harder for you might feel less motivated to be physically active. So you might not be as motivated to go to the gym or go for a walk or what other physical activity that you want to enjoy. So that's another way sleep can get in the way of, certain weight management or weight loss goals. Another reason sleep is really important is because it helps to improve your concentration and your level of productivity. So when you're getting good sleep, it can maximize your problem-solving skills. It also enhances your memory. And then on the other hand, if you're not getting enough sleep, then it can impair your brain function and decision-making skills. And that can lead to even like dangerous situations, so like driving tired and operating machinery and things like that. Another reason to get good sleep is if you are an athlete or someone trying to maximize their physical component performance, then good sleep is really important. And then another thing is if you're not getting adequate sleep, more than just like one night, we're going to always have a night or two here and there that might be off. But if you're consistently getting inadequate sleep, it's been linked to other health conditions such as heart disease or high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, mood disorders like depression. It also goes hand in hand with higher levels of inflammation. Another reason sleep is really important is because it helps to improve your immune function. This is especially important if you're already feeling run down, if you have the common cold. One thing I say to clients is sleep as much as you can so your body can rest and repair. Another thing sleep does is it helps to regulate your emotions, and in doing so, it helps you to interact better socially too. So maybe that gives you motivation to get more sleep. So what might be, those are just a few. There's more reasons sleep is really important, but those are some big ones. So let's talk about what are some barriers to sleep, or why may it be the case that you aren't getting good sleep. So I talked a little bit about this in my last Facebook Live on how nutrition response testing works. But one reason why you might be having difficulty sleeping is because there's a dysregulation in the nervous system. So when we're talking about the autonomic nervous system in particular, as you may know, it has two parts. So you have your sympathetic side of your nervous system, which puts you into like fight or flight mode. And then you have your parasympathetic side of your nervous system, which puts you into rest and digest. And so your autonomic nervous system's job is to be like, okay, it's supposed to regulate between the two. So basically, okay, your body is supposed to be dominantly in rest and digest, or it's supposed to be in fight or flight. So let's say, for example, you are waking up in the morning, you are kind of getting things ready for the day, you're working throughout the day, you're standing up, you're on your feet. Your sympathetic or your fight or flight part of your nervous system is going to be more dominant than your rest and digest. On the other hand, if you're winding down for the day, if you are sitting down to eat, and you want to support proper digestion, then that's when your rest and digest or your parasympathetic side of your nervous system is more dominant. But what can happen is when there is a dysregulation in the nervous system is instead of regulating between the two, you get stuck in one. So let's say, for example, you get stuck in fight or flight all the time, right? Then it's going to be really hard for you to go to sleep. Another thing that can happen is that instead of getting stuck in one, there's some confusion. So now as you're trying to lay down and go to bed and your rest and digest should be dominant, your fight or flight is actually kicking in. So why does that happen? Why does a nervous system dysregulation happen? Oftentimes we find it's because there's some kind of stress on the body that the nervous system isn't responding appropriately. So one common stress that might be on the body is food sensitivities. So when it comes to trying to improve your sleep, some foods that can cause a conflict there would be excess sugar, might keep you up longer. Also spicy foods or heavy foods, especially close to bedtime, if that's like, your dinner or your meal just before going to bed, those can potentially be upsetting your system, causing indigestion, keeping you up for longer. Caffeine, which could be in the form of something you drink, like coffee or sodas, teas, or something you eat, like chocolate. Alcohol is another food that is tricky when it comes to trying to go to bed at night. Another thing too is not eating enough throughout the day, and then your blood sugar gets kind of up and down, that type of thing. So you want to be eating throughout the day, keeping your blood sugar steady. It's going to support you in getting better sleep. Another reason why you might be not getting any sleep, or it could also be causing a dysregulation in the nervous system, are bugs or pathogens. In particular, when it comes to sleep, I think of parasites. Parasites are more active at night. They're also more active during the full moon and new moon. So if you notice that you're having like insomnia, you can't sleep at night, especially during those times of the month, new moon, full moon, or especially in the evening time, then it could potentially be related to parasitic activity. And I think that that's becoming a little bit more normalized because in the past, we would think parasites, they're not in the US, they're just in places that we travel to, maybe unsanitary places. But parasites are everywhere, and we all have them. Just like we have bacteria and yeast, it's just a matter of keeping things in check. And so we can do that by being really mindful with our foods and our lifestyle practices, and also, if we need to, taking certain supplements that will support our immune system and healthy gut function in that way. But just something to keep in mind. Another thing that can disrupt our sleep are blue lights. So blue lights would come from like your cell phone, your smartphone, your monitors, things like that. It'll disrupt your circadian rhythm because it'll trick your brain into thinking that it's daytime. And what that will do is it will reduce hormones like melatonin, which are there to help you relax and get deeper sleep. So blue lights disrupt circadian rhythm. Something similar would be EMFs, so electromagnetic frequencies. So these can be from smartphones, smart TVs, Wi-Fi, GPS, electric cars, airplanes, cell phone towers. And so what EMFs are those types of devices will emit certain frequencies which can impact us negatively. A lot of times symptoms that might manifest would be like headaches, difficulty concentrating, also disruption with sleep. And so for each of these things that I'm going over, after I'm done with that, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can address these things. So with EMFs in particular, what can you do about that? And then you may or may not be familiar, but scars or damaged nerve tissue, they can actually cause dysfunction in the body. They can lead to nervous system dysregulation, and they can impact our sleep. And so when it comes to scars, you can think of things like tattoos, stitches, stretch marks, burns, piercings, any kind of injuries to the skin. So when you think of our nervous system, it's estimated that about 80% or more of sympathetic nerve fibers actually end in the skin or, make contact with the skin. So if you think of a scar, it's essentially damaged nerve tissue, okay? And as energy is trying to travel through the body, it runs into that damaged nerve tissue and essentially gets stuck there. And that, as a result, you have less electrical circulation through the body. Now the body has less energy available to do what it needs to do every day to be able to heal itself. I know from my own experience that I have certain scars that if I don't address them, especially in the evening time, if I don't care for them, then it can lead to me not sleeping at night. And I know if I do take care of them, then it's going to be easier for me to fall asleep. So I'll go a little bit more into what the options are with those. But just so you know, a lot of times we find that midline scars in particular can be dysfunctional. So things along your belly button, if you have a belly button ring, or if you have a C-section scar or something like that, nose piercing. A lot of times we find if we can take out the piercing for someone, there is a greater flow of energy up and down the body, and we may see a reduction in symptoms. It may have to do with sleep, or it may have to do with other things that patient has going on. Just depends. Another barrier to sleep is stress. So stress can adversely affect our sleep quality and duration. So sleep loss, not sleeping enough, triggers our body to be more stressed. Then we're releasing more cortisol, and that further disrupts our sleep. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle. So when it comes to stress, one thing I've said before is either one, reducing the source of your stress, if that's possible, and focus. You have to focus on those things that you can control, but also if that isn't feasible for whatever reason, then really focus on what you can do to manage your stress. And I'll go into some examples there. Mood disorders like depression and anxiety, that can affect your sleep. Specifically with anxiety, it affects the REM state of sleep, and that's when you tend to have vivid dreams. For some people who have anxiety, dreams can become disturbing, turn into nightmares, which can actually wake you up. And depression, it's also known to negatively affect sleep as well. There's certain medications that can cause insomnia as a side effect. So some medications that treat ADHD, high cholesterol, even a stuffy nose can affect your sleep. And then you may also be experiencing a barrier to sleep because of a disorder like sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome. So those are some reasons why you may be experiencing lack of sleep or having trouble falling asleep. And what I want to provide you with next is tips to address each of those things. And just, you don't have to do all these things, but if something sounds interesting, I encourage you to give it a try, and see if it'll help you. Okay, so let's go back to dysregulation in the nervous system. So that's one thing that we check with nutrition response testing with all my clients that come in. The first thing I'm doing is checking to see if their nervous system is responding appropriately using muscle testing. And if it's not, then I further, test to see where that stress is coming from and then what would work to bring their body back into balance in terms of a natural remedy. Sometimes that's addressing their scars. Sometimes it's something to combat food sensitivities or drain their body of metals and chemicals. It really just depends. So I would suggest, if you're not working with a practitioner right now, if you're interested in learning more about an initial consultation, we can set up a complimentary 15-minute call for that. One test that we do during initial consultation is called a heart rate variability test, and it is a computerized test that gives us an indication if the nervous system is regulating appropriately. And then we work that along in conjunction with the muscle testing that we do too. So that's one way to figure out if you have a nervous system dysregulation going on. And then if one of those things is foods, or you think that foods could potentially be one of the reasons you're not sleeping well, the foods that you want to focus on, one, caffeine, which I mentioned. And so my recommendation there is try not to have any caffeine at least 6 hours before bed. If you are chronically having sleep conditions, I would just nix it in general. Another thing you want to avoid 4 hours before bed is alcohol. So you might think, a nightcap is going to help me go to bed. I get that. And it may be easier for you to fall asleep, but at some point throughout the night, as that wears off, that alcohol can actually interrupt your sleep later in the night. You might be waking up and having a hard time going back to sleep. And you also might be getting up because you have to use the bathroom. You also, when it comes to food, try to eat regularly throughout the day. I recommend not going more than 3 hours without eating a little something, just to carry you through to your next meal, so you keep your blood sugars stabilized, your metabolism high, and also your body nourished throughout the day. And then another thing in terms of food is you can work on, you don't want to have too much of like a heavy meal at night, so you can keep dinner on the lighter side, get your bigger meals for breakfast and for lunch, make sure you're getting your snacks. But if we're having like a heavy meal or even a spicy meal, we can keep ourselves awake with having either heartburn or indigestion. Okay, and then I mentioned about bugs, especially parasites. Get yourself tested for those. That's a very common stressor we find on the body when we do nutrition response testing. So again, if you're interested in learning more about how that's done, you can reach out to me. But when it comes to bugs, there's two things that we do primarily. So one is we work with clients to starve those bugs out using foods. And so mostly parasites, bacteria, yeast, they're going to feed off sugar and really starchy foods. So you want to be really mindful to avoid processed foods, especially like processed grains and carbs, and reducing sugar. Focus on whole food rich diet of mostly non-starchy veggies, high quality proteins, and healthy fats. Oftentimes that really helps, but you typically, in order to really get rid of them and overcome that immune challenge, will need to use supplements as well, mostly herbal or whole food, that are going to address those bugs, whether it's to pull them off the intestinal wall, whether it's to bind to their dead bodies and take them out of you. You can ask me more about that if you'd like, but it's kind of like a two-facet approach. So you have the supplements and you have the foods. And then if there's other stressors on the body, those need to be addressed too. And the body heals in layers, so it'll let us know what the priority is. And then you also want to think about linking your system to the circadian rhythm. So talking about that blue light, you want to limit screen time on your phone or on your TV, computer, at least 1 hour before bed. I would say even 2 or more if possible, because again, that blue light can be stimulating. There's also certain apps that you can download that will take that blue light off too, so that's something that you could try. Another recommendation I have is to actually connect with the sun. So first thing in the morning, try to get some daylight. So that could be, like, I would say within a half hour of waking up, you know, try to get some daylight. So open your blinds, go outside, take your dog for a walk or your kid for a walk, or maybe just sit outside, have like a cup of tea or something warm to drink, but just get some daylight. It's going to stimulate also like natural melatonin production. I know clients will come in and having a hard time to sleep, and they might be taking melatonin or tried taking melatonin in the past. And one thing I want to note is that melatonin isn't intended, it's intended to be temporary. So it's not something that you want to be taking every day for a long time, because as your body gets used to having that melatonin supplementation, it's going to reduce or shut off its own process of making melatonin, which you don't want to happen. So a good time to connect with the sun is first thing in the morning, throughout the day if you can. When you are connecting with the sun in the morning, it's kind of like alerting your body like, hey, it's time to get up, it's time to start moving for the day. And then another good time is like right around sunset. So as the sun's setting, maybe you go for another walk, you sit outside, and basically it's going to be communicating to your body like, okay, like it's sun setting, it's time to wind down, we're going to go to bed soon. I would avoid napping like excessively. Maybe you take a power nap, but don't go for too long of naps. Or also don't spend too much time in your bedroom or in your bed during the day. Have your bed be for sleeping only. So if you're choosing to like do your homework or do your work or be on the phone or watch TV, have that be in another room that's not where your bed is. So when you go into the room where your bed is, it's like also signaling to your body like, hey, it's time to sleep. Because if you're doing all this stuff in it throughout the day, there's not going to be that like clear definition of like, hey, this is my area to sleep. It's also important to get into a good routine with when you're getting up in the morning and when you're going to bed at night, as consistent as you can be with, say, like, you know, you have a certain time you're getting up each day and you have a certain time you're getting to bed at night. Your body is going to get into that rhythm too. So it's going to know, okay, if you're usually getting up around like 6 o'clock, like it's going to kind of automatically perk up at 6 o'clock and be like, it's time to get up. Same thing if you're going to bed every night, let's say like at 10 p.m., it's going to know that it's going to be time to wind down around that time. Okay. Another thing you can do is make sure you're sleeping in a dark room. So, you know, closing all your blinds and your curtains. And if that's not dark enough, then you can use a sleeping mask would be really good. And then going back to EMFs, what you can do is make sure that the devices that have those EMFs, like say your smartphone, that you're putting it on airplane mode or you're turning it off, that you're having it in the other room, preferably, or if not, at least like 6 feet away from you. If you can unplug your Wi-Fi and your router, your TV, I think that would be a great practice. Another thing you can do is you can get EMF protection. So it could be, I have one in my bag that I can show you, but what an EMF protector is it'll neutralize and even harmonize the frequencies from those types of devices. So this is like what one looks like, and this one's good for my phone, my TV, electric cars, cell phone towers, like anything that is really emitting EMFs. And this I usually carry in my purse, but it's a personal one, so it covers 15 feet in front of me, 15 feet behind me, and you know, it's like a 15 feet radius. But you can also get ones that are bigger than this, and it'll be for the home specifically. We have them here. I have one that's just for my cell phone that I keep on the back of my cell phone. So if you are kind of having, you know, trouble sleeping, and especially like headaches, you work in front of a computer all day, you might want to look into if EMFs are a cause, and then what you can do about them in terms of protection and chemical drainage of the EMFs throughout the body. And then going back to another barrier to sleep, stress. You want to create, one thing that you can do is create a relaxing evening routine before you go to bed. So it's kind of like trying to get your sympathetic side of your nervous system, or your rest and digest side of your nervous system to kick in. So like a few things that you can do are just like, you can like deep breathe, you know, take big inhales through the nose, big exhales through the mouth, or like whatever kind of breath work or meditation practice that you want to do to help allow that part of your nervous system to become more dominant, I think would be really great. Other practice would be like stretching, gentle yoga. You can read, like really calming activities. I think journaling is really good, especially if you have like a lot on your mind, whether it's to-dos or worries or stuff like that. Then you can write them down before you go to bed, like, okay, your to-do list, or those things that are just kind of like on your mind, and you get that like on pen and paper, and then you give yourself permission to let that go for the day. You can deal with it tomorrow so that you can go to bed. Another great stress relief is physical activities. So that can be simply walking. I always say do whatever type of physical activity you like to do. So if you like walking, if you like biking, if you like hiking, if you're a gym rat, go to the gym. But find what it is that you like to do. It'll help to relieve stress. It's great for, you know, your physical health, muscle repair, all that. But one thing that I would say about physical activity is don't do it right before bed, because it can be stimulating. So give yourself an hour at least, maybe probably more than that you can do some physical activity before you go to bed. And then another thing that I can recommend for stress, and we can test to see if it's going to agree well with your body, is certain herbs to help relax the nervous system. So valerian, kava, ashwagandha, rhodiola schisandra, those are ones that we commonly use, in addition to minerals like magnesium, specifically for sleep. So we can test to see if those would work well for you. And whenever you go with supplements, you definitely want to go high quality. Make sure it's all natural. There's no ingredients in there that your body is not going to like, and that it's like a really therapeutic quality supplement. And then I'm going to go back to scars. So I talked about how scars can kind of block the flow of energy through the body. They can cause a nervous system dysregulation. I'm going to answer this question real quick. Can you type what is device? Does it help to turn off the phone? Yes, it does help to turn off your phone. Devices that would emit EMFs would be like smartphones, smart TVs, Wi-Fi, GPS, microwaves, smart meters, cell phone towers, electric cars. Feel free to chime in too if anyone else. Hi, Ray. Okay, so things that you can do for your scars. So it depends what you test for, but we use some topical cell signaling supplements. Sometimes it's a spray or a gel we have you rub on certain scars twice a day. Another thing that works really well, I use it once a week. It's called a Novathor, and it is a whole body red light therapy. So it's good for scars, but it's also good for pain, inflammation, more energy. I personally use it as an anti-aging treatment because it's really good for your skin. Another way that we address scars too is by cupping. So Dr. Shannon does cupping here, and it helps to increase the circulation in that area, especially bringing the blood through the scar, breaking up scar tissue, and increasing circulation that way. So we often find scars maybe or maybe not, they're affecting sleep, but oftentimes they are causing some kind of stress on the body, with when they're addressed can really open up the body to healing. So if you're interested in learning more about that, that's one of the things that we do during initial consultation. And then when it comes to moods like depression, anxiety, what I would say is get to the root cause of why that's happening in the first place. You know, it could be related to bugs like parasites. Oftentimes people will have anxiety, but it also could be like nutritional deficiencies. So maybe if it's a lack of minerals or an essential fatty acids, that could really help. And if you're on certain medications that are causing insomnia in your case, then I would work with your healthcare practitioner to see what alternative treatment options, or if there's better times for you to take your medication so that you're not having those types of symptoms. And then lastly, I want to note is I would go for a comfortable, non-toxic mattress, bedding, pillowcase. You know, I had a client who, it wasn't necessarily that she was like having trouble sleeping, but she would get into bed and like her sinuses would go haywire. And so we actually tested the air in her room, and one of the things that showed up was bacteria. So I said, you know, like wash your sheets really well in hot water. Try vacuuming your mattress, like soak your walls in vinegar and your floor and stuff like that. And so she came back and she was like, I did all those things and I'm actually sleeping a lot better now. And so I said, okay, like let's retest your air again and see if it's okay. But so it maybe isn't necessarily something going on in terms of why you can't sleep and what I just mentioned, but like internally, but maybe it's more so your environment and the environment that you're in that's bringing about those symptoms, having it hard for you to go to sleep. So I hope that gives you some takeaways on how you can improve your sleep naturally. You know, these are just a few examples of what some barriers to sleep are and some lifestyle practices that you can try to get better sleep. But as always, I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's Facebook Live. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in hearing more about how we work with clients to address symptoms such as lack of sleep or, you know, trouble falling asleep, then we can connect for a free 15-minute consultation. You can leave a comment or feel free to message us directly. And I will be back next week, and I believe the Facebook Live topic is like quick and easy ideas for foods that you care for, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks that you can make with really minimal prep. You know, I always advocate for meal prepping because I think it makes it so much easier and less stressful through the week when you have your foods ready, and it's easier for you to make healthy choices. But sometimes that doesn't happen for whatever reason, and it's always good to have some quick and easy options on hand. So does the Novathor help with eyes and blood flow? So the Novathor helps with circulation. And one thing that would be really good, Sandra, is when you couple the Beamer and the Novathor together, they play off of each other. So like the Beamer will help to increase your body circulation, and so it will make the Novathor more effective. So yeah, that's a really good question. Thanks everyone for listening. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.